Forged by battles, refined by fire, built for purpose. I am Alpha A BET-DAWID, and this is where pain becomes power. Welcome to the journey. There are betrayals that wound the heart, and then there are betrayals so deep they attempt to erase an entire bloodline. The events that unfolded in my life during those years were not random misfortunes. Looking back, it became painfully clear that something far darker was at work, something deliberate, methodical, and fueled by a hatred that ran deeper than ordinary human conflict. At the center of that darkness stood one woman, my stepmother, Hamida. What we did not understand at the time was that Hamida's presence in our family was not merely that of a resentful spouse or a jealous stepmother. Her actions suggested something far more sinister, a calculated mission to dismantle the very foundation of our family and redirect our legacy toward her own children and her extended family. And the lengths she was willing to go to accomplish this was unimaginable. When my father left Canada to expand his business ventures in West Africa, our family was already fragile. But what we did not foresee was that this physical separation would create the perfect opportunity for something far more destructive to unfold behind the scenes. Inside our own household, hidden beneath the surface of ordinary family life, a silent betrayal had already taken root. Like a serpent quietly coiled in the grass, waiting for the right moment to strike, Hamida had begun weaving a web of manipulation and spiritual interference that would eventually shatter everything we knew. Her hatred toward my brother Adam and me was not subtle. We were not her children, and in her eyes, we were obstacles. Obstacles standing between her son Muhammad and the inheritance my father had already chosen for me. My father's decision was never arbitrary. He believed there was a divine purpose guiding the lineage of our family, a spiritual mandate that had passed from his older brother Sulaiman to him, and now from him to me. The freedom and legacy of our bloodline, he believed, depended on this calling. That belief placed a target on my back, because in the unseen spiritual battlefield that I would only understand years later, those marked with purpose often become the primary targets of destruction. And Hamida willingly became an instrument of that destruction. Hamida understood something very important. She could not convince my father to disinherit me. His confidence in my potential was too strong. So she devised a different strategy. If she could not change my father's mind, she would change how the world saw me. Her goal was not to kill me physically. It was something far more sinister. She intended to destroy my mind. If I could be made to appear incapable, confused, intellectually impaired, unable to think clearly or express myself, then my father would have no choice but to remove me as the heir. This was not an emotional outburst or a moment of jealousy. It was a carefully designed 5-step strategy. First, she sought to surround me with the wrong influences, friends who would put me away from discipline and into destructive environments. Second, she encouraged exposure to drugs, gangs, and violence, ensuring that my behavior would spiral out of control. Third, she sabotaged my education, My ability to absorb information, retain knowledge, and succeed academically began to deteriorate in ways that made no logical sense. Fourth, she targeted my greatest natural gift, my ability to speak and communicate. The plan was to sever the connection between my thoughts and my ability to express them, making me appear unintelligent even when my mind was clear. Finally, she intended to cement this illusion permanently. To the outside world, I would appear normal, but internally, I would be trapped inside a mind that no longer functioned as it once did. The brilliant young boy my father believed in would slowly be replaced by someone who seemed incapable of fulfilling the destiny that had been placed before him. And all of it would appear natural. No doctor would detect it, no therapist could diagnose it. No one would suspect foul play. The methods she chose to carry out this plan was steeped in dark ritual. Hamida sought out a witch doctor. Together, they entered into a covenant, one that required sacrifice, payment, and personal offerings. The ritual itself was horrifying. A live chicken was brought forward. The witch doctor sliced open the animal's eyes with a blade, deliberately blinding it while it was still alive. As the chicken bled, its blood was collected and mixed with a fine dust, a substance meant to carry the spiritual essence of blindness and confusion. The mutilated bird was hung above a shrine built specifically to target me. Hamida provided personal items belonging to me, objects that would link the ritual directly to its victim. Hair, clothing, anything that could establish a spiritual connection. Once the ritual was complete, the final act will seal the curse. Someone would throw the dust directly into my face, specifically toward my eyes. The symbolism was intentional. Just as the chicken had been blinded, I too would be blinded, mentally, spiritually, and intellectually. Not long after, something happened that I could never fully explain. One afternoon, while at school, an overwhelming exhaustion suddenly overtook me. It was like anything I had ever experienced. I could barely keep my eyes open. The fatigue felt unnatural, almost as if something was pulling the strength out of my body. Unable to continue the day, I returned home early and collapsed onto my bed. Then the dream came. In the dream, I walked through dense bushes until I reached a massive tree, dark, twisted, and radiating a disturbing presence. From behind the tree emerged an elderly woman dressed in white. Her appearance was disturbing, small, vicious, and filled with hostility. Without warning, she began throwing objects at my eyes. I tried to shield myself, but the attack continued relentlessly. Then suddenly, I woke up. My heart was racing, my body was trembling, and something felt terribly wrong. The following morning, my world had changed. When I opened my eyes, everything looked different. I could still see shapes and colors, but it felt as if a dark filter had been placed over my vision. It was subtle, yet unmistakable. As days passed, the real damage revealed itself. My mind no longer worked the way it once did. Information I studied would vanish from my memory within hours. Teachers spoke, but their words failed to connect with understanding. It felt as if my eyes, ears, and brain had been disconnected from one another, like pieces of a machine that no longer functioned together. The golden child my family once knew began to disappear, and in his place emerged a confused teenager, struggling to survive in a mind that no longer obeyed him. But the attack against me was only the beginning. Hamida had something far greater in mind. She had designed a curse meant not only for me, but for my father, my brother Adam, and every male descendant of our family. A curse meant to span 4 generations. Her intention was nothing less than the complete dismantling of our lineage. The curse declared that every success we achieved will collapse suddenly. Businesses would fail. Money would disappear. Efforts would produce nothing but exhaustion. Opportunities will vanish before we could grasp them. Our spiritual lives would be suppressed. Our moral strength weakened. Our bodies would suffer unexplained illnesses. Our minds clouded with confusion and despair. Relationships would fail. Friends would betray us. Alliances would turn into opposition. Even when success briefly appeared, it would be snatched away. We would experience constant rejection, constant delays, constant humiliation. Our family would remain divided. Unity would become impossible. And eventually, the relentless pressure of failure, sickness, poverty, and isolation would drive us towards self-destruction. Addictions, violence, overdose, suicide. Her goal was simple, not merely to defeat us, but to erase us. Hamida's hatred did not stop with the men in the family. My sisters, Hawa, Umu, and Khadija, were also targeted. Their curse was different. They would be trapped in endless cycles of broken relationships. Even when good men appeared in their lives, something would drive them away. Instead, they would be drawn toward destructive relationships that drain their dignity and spiritual strength. Their personalities would change. They would become distant from the family, suspicious of the men in their own bloodline. Their lives would become filled with emotional instability, heartbreak, and confusion. The purpose of this was simple. If the men were destroyed through failure, the women would be destroyed through moral and emotional turmoil. Together, it would fracture the entire family. Around the same time, something inexplicable began happening to my father. In West Africa, his thriving businesses suddenly began collapsing. Employees stole assets. Business partners betrayed him. Contracts failed. His fleet of trucks vanished without a trace. Banks seized his remaining funds. Government partners abandoned him. Within a short period of time, the man who once stood as one of the most successful businessmen in our family lost everything. And back in Canada, Hamida laughed. She mocked him openly, telling me he would never recover. Her confidence was chilling because it sounded less like speculation and more like certainty. Meanwhile, my own life was spiraling. Unable to succeed in school and unable to explain why, I withdrew from everything that reminded me of the person I once was. Instead, I found refuge among gang members, drug dealers, and street life. The streets did not demand intellectual clarity. They only demanded survival. And so, the curse continued to do its work. But what none of us understood at that time was that this was not just a story of destruction. It was the beginning of something else. A battle that would stretch across decades. A battle between darkness that sought to erase my destiny and a divine purpose that refused to let it die. And the story was only just the beginning. For many years, I believed that the worst of Hamida's attacks had already happened during my teenage years. The damage had already been done. My mind had been clouded. My life had been derailed. My father's empire had collapsed under circumstances no one could explain. But what I would later discover was even more disturbing. Hamida had never stopped. Not for a moment. Even decades later, her campaign against my life and my father's bloodline continued in the shadows. What she had started as a young woman determined to seize control of my father's legacy had evolved into a relentless spiritual war that stretched across nearly 30 years. Something changed when I eventually became a believer and a follower of Christ. For the first time in my life, I was no longer spiritually defenseless. The attacks did not stop completely, but their power was greatly reduced. The covenant of Christ placed limits on what Hamida and the dark forces she collaborated with could accomplish. Their ultimate goal had always been to drive me completely insane. If I could be reduced to madness, unable to think clearly, unable to function, unable to defend myself, then they could steal what they believed was my star and my destiny. But faith created a barrier they could not easily penetrate. The protection of Christ frustrated their efforts, yet they continued searching for opportunities. Seven years later, a difficult situation forced me to leave the province where I was living. I relocated to another province in search of employment and stability. To me, it was simply a necessary move in order to rebuild my life. But to Hamida, it looked like an opportunity. She believed that distance and isolation had created a perfect moment to finish what she had started decades earlier. One day she called me. Her tone sounded friendly, deceptive. She told me she needed my address so she could bring her daughter to Canada for immigration purposes. At the time, I had no reason to question it. What I did not know was that Canadian immigration requires only one address for that process. She did not need my location for paperwork. She needed my location for something else entirely. She wanted to know where I lived so she could send a wicked spirit to afflict me and destroy everything I was building. Not many days later, I experienced something that left me deeply unsettled. I had a vision. In the vision, I saw a strange environment, something resembling a swamp or marshland. Tall grass grew from shallow waters, like the edge of a river or a wetland. Standing there was a creature unlike anything I had ever seen before. From the waist up, it appeared human, dark-skinned, long, silky black hair, a round face, sharp green eyes. But from the waist down, it had a tail of a fish. a marine spirit. The moment I saw it, I woke up suddenly. At the time, I did not fully understand what God had shown me. Only later would I realize that the vision was a warning. God had revealed the demon Hamida has sent to attack me. For 7 long years, my life entered another mysterious cycle of destruction. Every good decision I made, every opportunity I worked hard to build, every relationship I tried to establish, every dream or goal I sacrificed for collapsed. Over and over again, I would work tirelessly. I would see success within reach, but just before anything could fully manifest, everything would fall apart. They attacked me through people, through workplaces, through emotions, through relationships, through dreams, through finances, through my thoughts, through my mind. No matter how disciplined I became, no matter how carefully I planned, every effort seemed to dissolve into misfortune. It felt as though something followed me everywhere I went, waiting for the exact moment progress appeared before pulling it out from under me. After 7 years of this relentless pattern, I made the decision to return to Ontario. Around the same time, Hamida and her son Muhammad suddenly reappeared in my life again. But their intentions were not reconciliation. They wanted information. They wanted to know what I was doing, where I was going, what plans I had, what projects I was working on. Every detail they could gather would help them sabotage whatever I was trying to build, because their strategy depended on one critical thing. They needed me to fall into sin, specifically sexual immorality. If I lived in righteousness, their access to my life remained limited. But if they could pull me into sin, they believed they would gain full spiritual access over me. One day, Muhammad invited me to their home for dinner. It appeared innocent, family gathering, but the moment I arrived, something about the situation felt strange. They had prepared food specifically for me. Unknown to me at the time, the food had been prepared with incantations, talismans, and sort of poisons. Not intended to kill me, but to manipulate my behavior. The goal was to trigger powerful sexual urges and immoral thoughts. When the food was offered, I initially refused. I told them to give it to Aisha instead. But Muhammad quickly intervened. No, he insisted. You should eat it. Hamida paused, watching carefully to make sure I was the one who consumed the food, not her daughter. In that moment, I saw the situation unfolding, but everything was happening so quickly that I failed to fully process what was really taking place. Eventually, I ate the meal, and shortly afterward, something strange began happening in my mind. Thoughts that were not my own began appearing. Lust, pornography, immoral ideas, desires completely foreign to the person I had become as a follower of Christ. It felt as if something else had entered my mind and was trying to take control. They were testing me. They expected me to fall. But while they were able to bend me, they could not break me, because the Spirit that raised Christ from the dead lives in me. When that plan failed, they tried something else. Muhammad visited my home. His intention was not friendship. He was looking for opportunities to plant talismans, witchcraft objects, or spiritual tools inside my living space. He also stole my USB drive. Inside that device were documents about my plans, projects, and ideas. By studying those things, they hoped to sabotage my future before it could unfold. Eventually, God intervened. One night I received a dream so clear and revealing that it finally exposed the truth I had been searching for. The dream revealed the main source of the witchcraft that had haunted my family for decades. The person responsible for the most severe spiritual attacks against my father, against me, and against our entire bloodline, Hamida. For nearly 30 years, she had been investing time, energy, and enormous amounts of money into witchcraft designed to destroy my father's lineage. And she had never intended to stop. After my father died unexpectedly, Hamida and her children quickly appeared at my sister Hawaz's house. They acted as though they were grieving family members, but I knew something they didn't realize. I already knew who they were. I remained silent. I watched their movements, every action, every whisper, every signal. When I spoke with someone, Hamida would send Mohammed to stand nearby and listen. When I comforted my sister, she would signal him again to interrupt. They were staging an illusion, trying to make it appear as if they cared deeply about our family. But behind the scenes, they were manipulating my sister, planting talismans and spiritual objects around her home, both outside in the yard and inside the house. These objects were meant to cloud her judgment, to make her unaware of their true intentions, to turn her against me, because if they could not destroy me directly, they would use someone close to me to do it. And tragically, my sister, driven by insecurity and pride, allowed herself to be manipulated. Eventually, she helped create something that would become another weapon against me, a fake will, a document designed to confiscate the lands and properties my father had placed in my name. By that point, one truth had become undeniable. This was never just about family conflict. It was spiritual warfare, a battle that had started long before I understood it. A battle against a destiny that certain forces were determined to erase. But what Hamida never understood was that destiny, given by God, cannot be permanently destroyed by the schemes of men. And the war she began decades earlier was far from over. Looking back at everything that happened, one truth became impossible for me to ignore. What unfolded in my life was not simply a series of unfortunate events. It was a deliberate assault. A war waged in silence. A war fought in the shadows. A war against a destiny that certain forces were determined to erase before it could ever fully emerge. Hamida's hatred was not limited to jealousy or family conflict. It evolved into something far darker. A mission to dismantle an entire bloodline. My father's empire collapsed. My mind was attacked. My siblings were targeted. And every step forward in life seemed to be followed by another unseen force, pushing everything back down again. But there is something about destiny that darkness often fails to understand. When God assigns a purpose to a life, that purpose cannot be erased by human schemes. It may be delayed, it may be attacked, it may be buried under years of pain and confusion, but it cannot be destroyed. because what is written by God cannot be rewritten by witchcraft. And the same story that the enemy meant to turn into a tragedy, God can turn into a testimony. What you have heard today is not the end of the story. It is only another chapter in a much larger battle. A battle between destruction and purpose. A battle between darkness and divine destiny. And as the truth continued to unfold, the full extent of the betrayal surrounding my family would become even clearer. But that is a story for the next episode. This is Alpha A BET-DAWID. If this episode resonated with you and you want to hear the rest of this story unfold, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. Leave a comment below and tell me this. Do you believe spiritual warfare can affect entire families and bloodlines? Your thoughts and experiences could help someone else who may be going through something similar. Also, if you want to go deeper into this journey and discover the full details about these testimonies, you can find the links to my books, Timbo, A Victim of God's Purpose, in the description below. Because your story matters, your journey matters, and your life is not random. Thank you for listening. And remember this, no matter how dark the battle becomes, God and the destiny He has placed within you will always have the final word. I will see you in the next episode.